about diagnosis and my experience and perceptions about it. So I have been a product of, projection my whole life. And the acquiescing to those projections or in rebellion to those projections, it leaves one in a state of constantly feeling self-gaslit, right? The second you make a decision, you question yourself, because for the most part, we're looking for somebody else to tell us who we are, when our whole lives we've had somebody, pointing us in the direction that they wanted us to be as a human being. That has left me as a person in the mental health field, where my field doesn't, some people acknowledge generational trauma. Some people acknowledge the idiosyncratic nature of the whole human experience. But for the most part, we put people into boxes, which could be great if those boxes are used as a foundation for starting something beyond that, rather than it being a crutch in which people fall back to, and the therapists fall back to, and everybody collectively revolves around this projection and this assumption that this person is this thing, and there's no transcendence of this thing. So I believe in diagnostics, but I believe in the transcendence of the diagnostic, which is why I don't diagnose people. So let me go here. The reason this is coming up is this. I get emails telling me I'm a bipolar slut, I'm a narcissist. I also get emails telling me that I save people's lives, which is amazing. But I still deal with a lot of projections. And that's fine. But the last email I got, which was very much in good-natured attempt, was somebody saying, hey, I think that you should consider that you're on the autistic spectrum and that you are an empath on the autistic spectrum, which classically, autistic spectrum disorder comes with an inability to be empathic. So at first I brushed it off, but then I watched the documentary Love on the Spectrum, and I was like, dude, these are my people. Obviously they get it. But the thing is that somebody in my demographic, we've kind of been taught to put ourselves behind the eyes of everybody else in order to know where we are and where we stand. So I can relate to a lot of diagnostics, right? And my daughter, my 6-year-old now daughter, she is constitutionally like me. I say this a lot on here. I say it to everybody I know. And if I wanted to put her in a diagnostic situation, she is 100% ADD. I am 100% ADD. I mean, it's the fact that I grew up with, just they told me I was stupid. They didn't tell me that there was something going on with the way that I process things. Also, there's probably a little bit of, sensory processing going on there. Sensory processing issues for me. Wearing jeans when I was a kid, absolutely not, dude. Don't put that near me. I'm still freaked out when I see denim. But there is a part of me as a mother that wants to say, okay, if she's struggling like this, and mind you, let me go here too, because whatever, it's my channel. Some people are going to say it's nuts, but whatever. I got my daughter hair tested. So I got my first hair test about 14 years ago. And the functional medicine doctor reading my test, who knew nothing about me, all she did was say, hey, I'm going to get you this hair test because I would be I can do blow and fall asleep. Something's wrong with me, right? And she gave me a hair test. And she saw the results and she looked at the panel and she said, oh, it's very clear to me that you are a direct descendant of somebody exposed to Agent Orange. Mind you, my father was in Vietnam on the ground in the heaviest battle that there was for 2 years. And my mother grew up on a farm spraying pesticides constantly. I grew up on the same farm. They would just spray the trees, spray the pesticides. And that creates a genetic mutation in which detoxing becomes harder, right? So those chemicals are still represented in my marrow, in the marrow of my bones, right? And you'd think I'm that's my work. It stops with me. But one generation, here we go deeper. Now that I'm finding out all of this research, I'm like, oh my God, it actually sometimes affects the grandchildren of Vietnam veterans even more. Apparently there's like higher autism rates of grandchildren of Vietnam vets and things like that. So if I look at this and I go, oh my God, what's going on? I need like kind of an answer so I can transcend this, right? So I get my daughter a hair test, and our doctor is, you know, he's in this new practice. He's not a new doctor, but he's new to functional medicine, and it's going to take him 1.5 years to get his certification, but he comes from allopathy. And I get this hair test, and he says she's super high in uranium and thorium, like off the charts. And he kind of like rolled his eyes and was like, that doesn't even make sense. And I was like, well, what is uranium and thorium? And he said, they're radioactive substances. Like, I wouldn't even trust this test, is what he said. And I was like, honestly, like, you know, and then I said, she has a neurology appointment because all 3 out of 4 of my kids, and my youngest is only 2 at this point, we all have the same vagal induced, they have syncope, I have straight up seizures. So, and you'd think, oh, this stops with me, right? I'm going to stop this thing. I am the breaker of the chains, right? Like, that's my work. And to see it and witness it in your children, it feels a little bit helpless because, my God, it's like painful to love people so much. It's painful to have so many people to love. So I want to get to the bottom of this. And she has a neurology appointment coming up, and it's more vasovagal. That's the issue. I know that it is. And they're going to tell me it's, you know, blah, 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 blah. Even though they've been pretty good, actually, so far. But my doctor said to me, I said, I'm going to tell the neurologist. And he said, the neurologist is just going to tell you you're crazy. In his own way, he's saying you're crazy. And I said, well, I'll take one for the team because I think they're crazy too. So I come home and I'm researching, and it's like, why would this be the case? What is this? Uranium and thorium. Thorium is an isotope of radon. Uranium is a byproduct of radon. So I posted about, like, you know, how to expel or unbind uranium and thorium. And I come to find out, based on this post, that where I live has one of the highest radons, like, in the nation, radon levels in the nation. And radon gas is something that it's invisible, you inhale it, and it can cause lung cancer. And Chris always says to me that he thinks I have chronic bronchitis. So these radioactive substances are taking over my daughter's body, right? And I get to the root of what this is, right? And I can thankfully go back to the doctor and say, hey, we have radon in our home. That's what's going on. So hopefully he trusts the test a little bit more that he told me not to trust, because my problem with doctors that tell me not to trust the test is that I trust the test more than the doctors that are telling me that, right? And I just want somebody who, like, gets it and can put it all together. But the truth is, that's my job, right? Like, that's my job, to put it all together. So when this person said to me, you know, I think you're on the autistic spectrum and you're an empath with sensory processing issues. And I immediately go down, okay, like, yeah, I could see the symptomology. I could, you know, that presents, blah, blah, blah. But then I'm doing it from this frequency of fear. Like, what am I? 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 And that right there is a fucking problem. Right there. That frequency will make somebody sick. That frequency is the same as being narcissistically abused your whole life. Somebody telling you what you are and then going, is that right? Is that right? Am I right? Should I be here? Am I not here? Who? Blah, 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 right? So that right there. I work with a lot of people who can position themselves in many different, you know, facets of experiencing somebody else's experience and going, well, I have a lot of sympathy for my perpetrator and I understand the sociopath. And that's the thing that's interesting is, you know, one of my clients said to me one time that she's so appreciative of my work because she said, I was raised by a sociopath. What does that mean about me? Like, what does that really mean about me? And then when you mix that with the other polarizing effect of you're also raised by a codependent who revolves around the sociopath, you don't even exist in that dynamic, right? You exist as a projection. And you're kind of either in the way or you're the problem that connects them. Ouch, that sucks. So then you grow up thinking, I'm the fucking problem. I'm the problem. I'm the problem. I'm the problem. How can I fix myself? How can I fix myself? What am I? If I could just figure out what I am, then I could fix myself. And that's the problem, right? So I'm open to all these projections of And maybe it's a reality. Like, maybe it's true. I could sit here and say that I present sometimes in various chapters of my life, and this is the point, and this is the point of the work, right? Transcendence is possible. I could say that I presented as insanely codependent, insanely narcissistic, ADD, ADHD, maybe even borderline, bipolar for sure. Depending on, I've never been like disorganized as far as schizophrenia, but I deeply get the schizophrenic. My aunt was schizophrenic, and it's like, oh yeah, that's a very terrifying reality to live in, to be behind the eyes and the sensory perceptions of that person. Like, I could put myself there, right? I understand the contrast and the vastness of the human experience. And in a way that a lot of people go, what is my position in the matrix? What is my position in life? And they fear this, that they don't have one, because they can put themselves behind everybody else's eyes. And I want you to know that you are the person, you are the thing that can get into position behind other people's eyes, right? And that weirdly is a position. And I think that we seek to diagnose that sensory awareness of what it would be like to be somebody else. And the hyperness that comes with, like, oh, I'm surrounded by this person, and now my nervous system is doing this thing, and now I had this experience and my nervous system is doing this other thing. So I just want to say that when you're trying to figure out what you are, which is, I'm bringing this up also because one of my clients, and I tend to be a person who like does the thing, and then I have the client and I'm like, oh, that's why I wrote that thing, or that's why I did that thing. And I had this experience this week. She also had this experience where she's going down the rabbit hole of like, is my mom the narcissist? Is my dad, like, what's going on here? Why am I so insane? And that right there is the reason I think that when labels are dropped and we look at the isness of what actually is, it doesn't matter who is what, it matters how you respond, what you do with the information, right? If you believe the information, you're going to respond radically differently than if you go, oh, that just is what it is. And it is, suffice to say, that when I watched this video one time on YouTube, and it was about narcissistic mothers. I was way too close to it to see it. I had no idea, because in traditional textbooks, it's like, oh, this person's very grandiose, this person's this. That is not what she was. That's not at all. And this patterning of what the narcissistic mother does, I was like, oh my God. I am literally suffering from a personality disorder that is not my own. That's actually what she is. Like, even though I would say like she's clinically diagnosable, when I saw that, I was like, my reality is real, right? Like, I have actually been witness to that. And I used to kind of say it from like, yeah, she's like nuts. But now I'm like, oh my God, like that happened to me. That is exactly my life, right? And the frequency of trying to figure out what you are and what is wrong with you based on, it's good to know, because then you can go, oh yeah, that's it. That was it. But then beyond that, if I keep looking at my mother like that, guess what? She's going to stay that way. So when I look at it as, oh, that's literally just dis-ease. That's just the vibration of dis-ease. And a lot of people are like, what do you mean by vibration and energy? But like, that's just the way my senses experience the world. And they're all the same for the most part. There's like nuances as far as like mental illness are concerned, but the vibration is diffuse and diseased, right? So I could then look at it and go, oh, that's just my mother's dis-ease. I don't have to not be at ease because she's not at ease, right? And from that generalization, I changed the story from the inside out. And I now have parents who are more like the parents I actually needed when I needed parents, which is amazing. And I'm not against diagnostics. I believe in the symptomology. And I believe that when some people are so attuned to the diagnostic that becomes their reason. There's this idea and theory, actually, it's been tested, that if two people eat acid in a room full of 100 people, those two people are going to go home together that night. They're going to vibrate near each other. They're going to find each other, and they're going to leave together. The same is true with bipolar people. And these two chicks at one point were like, ran up to me in grad school, and they were like, we know you're bipolar. We're bipolar too, as if it was like a cliquish thing. And I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, dude. Like, never been diagnosed bipolar, but like they were 100% riding on the frequency that I was bipolar. And I think in a way that's because they can feel my nervous system, and whoever's looking at me, my nervous system weirdly responds to that projection, right? And I think that is something to consider if you have been narcissistically abused your entire life. You're going to be more open to projection, and then you're going to be like, oh my God, if that's what I am, then I have to change something, instead of just being like, that's what I am, and I don't have to buy the label as much as the generalization of, oh, that's actually me when I'm diseased, when I'm really not at ease. So I believe in diagnostics. I believe in the transcendence of diagnostics, because their idea of being bipolar to them was a reason. It was something that they were then like, oh, look, I'm you too. Which is fine. I understand that we want people to relate to us and we want to connect with people, but it became something that was an othering in a weird way. And from that dynamic, you can never feel really understood by normal people. And we're trying to get to normal, right? It's like, I don't really want to be normal because normies really irritate me, but in another way, that's actually the goal. So I just want to clarify that I definitely, I believe in the symptomology of diagnosis. And I believe that in some instances, it can be great to pinpoint something and say, this is what we're dealing with. But beyond that, we should be working to transcend that. And I think in a lot of situations in our medical system, that is not what's going on. There is a belief in this is what you are. This is what you deal with. This is what you suffer from. This is what you're going to live with. Instead of, oh, okay, this is actually your experience, your nervous system, your biology, your psychology, your cognitions with your energy. This is the concoction of what's going on right now. And let's figure out how to unthread it so we can transcend beyond that. Because even the other day, I got a test again. I was told my whole, I had cervical cancer, I had vulvar cancer when I was 19. I was told I had HPV. I do not have HPV in my system. I have zero indication of any traceability of even having come in contact with it in my DNA at this point in my life. I believe in transcendence. I believe in symptomology, obviously, and I believe in healing more than the diagnosis. So if we can stick to that place instead of going, oh, how can I fix myself? What am I? Let me figure out what I am and what everybody else is so I can fix the world. One, it's super codependent. And two, you ain't fixing nothing from that state because you ain't broken. You just is what you is, right? You just are what you actually are. And so many of us want to put labels around that and figure out how to tidy it up and put a bow on it. And that bow is suffocating. So I just want to clear up my little, to-do about diagnosis, because I don't want people to think like, oh, I don't whatever. It doesn't even matter what you think. I just want to clear it up so you have some actual insight onto the possibility of actually generalizing diagnosis so that you believe in the transcendence of it. And if you go, oh, this is me in my dis-ease, and you can feel the difference in frequency between that you and the true you, who is the you not at ease, and you can feel the same generalizations in other people instead of labeling them and slapping them with something that either you should pity them for or be feel bad or blame them for. That puts us all in boxes, and that those separative aspects of cognitions are what I would like to break free from in my own personal life. And I think that that's probably what you're after too. And then there's this there's this what's the difference between me and them? Where do I start? Where do they begin? Again, it's like if you are a person who can put yourself in the position of being behind the eyes of other people, that is a position, and you can step into position in the position. You just do it consciously and with choice. Or you can go, oh, what presence, girl? Let me feel my face. What am I doing here? Right? So I think a lot of us dissociate in our, oh, I'm feeling this person and I'm feeling this person. And then we think we're dissociating when really if we got into position even behind the eyes of the person instead of being void between where we actually are energetically and that person, we would still know what our position was. We would just be experiencing from behind them instead of, void of ourselves in that experience, if that makes sense. Okay, I hope this makes sense. I love you guys. Thanks so much for being here. I'll talk to you soon.